Hey Remoras, it's me, Mr. Sharks. Picture yourself in 1916. The only Nintendos available were packs of cards. Chicago Cubs fans will have to wait just one more century for their next World Series, and the fat whale recently sang on 530 million years of monarchist rule over China. You are in the Middle East. If you don't like sand, you are here to witness the start of the Arab Revolt. Hear the Arabs out on this. They were ruled for centuries by the not Arabic Ottoman Empire. At this point, it's so close to death that joining World War I can be seen as a cry for help. If there's ever a good time to rise up, this is it. Good news for the Arabs, there are nations willing to help them out, who will offer them things they don't know they want, such as a ginormous kingdom in the Middle East. This guy, Hussein bin Ali, had held government positions under the Ottoman Empire, and that's where his problems began. He didn't want Turks ruling over his land. Why should he care about them? They didn't offer him the Kingdom of Arabia when they had the chance. His new ally said that would happen if all goes well. Meanwhile, his new allies were discussing what was really going to happen if all goes well. Hussein's opinion would be just as important to them if he was a sentient barrel of oil. There would be various meetings discussing what would be done with the land the Ottoman Empire controlled, from the creation of a Jewish state to giving Russia Constantinople. By far the most infamous proposition is the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Constructed by these coincidentally named Mark Sykes and Francois-Georges Picot characters, it would set up spheres of influence for Britain and France that would only change slightly in the final draft. Meanwhile, the oblivious Arabs were behind the most successful guerrilla warfare campaign of World War I. Furthermore, with Russia dropping out to deal with its civil war, Persian resistance against those meddling imperialists, and Bulgaria being a buffer against the Allied forces in Greece, the push from the south was the most successful in the Middle Eastern theater. By 1918, the Entente inevitably came out on top against the sick man of Europe. In a fair world, King Hussein would get his shiny new kingdom. We don't live in a fair world. In the Treaty of Sèvres, French people need to start pronouncing all letters in a word. Treaty of Sèvres, only countries not from the Middle East benefited. The Arabs would not get their shiny new kingdom. Instead, the lands were absorbed into the colonial empires of either Britain or France. Don't be embarrassed, it happens to everyone. They were on the winning side, yet they weren't much better off than Turkey, the Ottoman Empire's successor state. Even then, the term sucked so much ass that they fought another war back to back, which they would win, the first step to becoming a major player on the world stage. On the other hand, all the Arabs could do was wait for the British and French colonial empires to collapse. When they did, the Arabs got their long-awaited independence. They would come to know the saying, if you see fish fighting amongst themselves in a pond, the British were there all too well. King Hussein would end up ruling this long strip of land on the Arabian Peninsula, known as the Kingdom of Hijaz. But like the agreements for a post-World War I Middle East, this arrangement didn't last long. The Emirate of Nejd, their rival for Arab unification, would conquer their asses, not without help from... Much like Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Arabic world diverged beyond the point of no return. Several futile efforts were made by artificial Arabic countries to unite the Middle East themselves. Their new nations already became part of their identities. The governments of newly unified countries were more of a sliding scale for nationalities rather than united based on ethnicity. The only thing they're on board with is... nothing that won't get me in trouble with YouTube. After Gaddafi's failed attempt at unification, things went from bad to worse. By that point, the Emirate of Nejd, whom you now know as Saudi Arabia, was a formidable country. Like Turkey, it is a G20 state and a major player in the Middle East. They fund any country that prefers to be a hardcore Islamist dictatorship over whatever Iran has. Iran is Saudi Arabia's rival for Middle Eastern dominance. Where do they put their money and flex their muscles? In the land the Ottoman Empire clung onto when they joined the war. Land taken into consideration by Sykes and Picot. The region as a whole has been in turmoil for so long that when we think of the Middle East, we think of instability, populism, authoritarianism, and violence. It didn't have to happen this way. It shouldn't have happened this way. Now, imagining the world in an alternate timeline where this happened instead of that is popular to speculate. World War I, World War II, and the American Civil War have been turned inside out in books, games, and YouTube videos. The Kingdom of Arabia is not a popular choice. Picture yourself on a plane on October 13th, 2002. You are with Sean Penn, an actor who has played in these movies. You're traveling to protest George Bush in Iraq. From your point of view, the flight went well. Nothing out of the ordinary. Little did you know that somewhere in the middle of a rock's airspace, you went through a portal.
You nicked the top and are no longer going where you intended. Normally, it's guarded pretty well. On any other
Where are you? How is it possible? Save the questions for later. Just enjoy the scenery. You have nothing to say, but don't anyway. I won't take this away. Enjoy it, okay? Embrace that you're coming along. People will know you are right and Bush is wrong. Wrong about the pain. Now I have to explain. In short, King Hussein can't complain. He has his kingdom that's in world stage stardom. You're inclined to guess and the answer is yes. We don't share a single mess. No Saddam, no Arab Spring, no ISIS. A doorway opened to this world. Why? Well, for reasons that float like a butterfly. The Foundation provides some clues for us to use. Well, at the start, there is a guard. Behind him is a guild of beings of his build, surrounding a grave and fruit tree. I like to think they are his friends, and that's probably just me. Perhaps it's a new guy. The old guy got KIA. The tear was already there, and it got worse after he died. Okay? As a result, they had to replace him with brothers. Or maybe they're at best protecting or at worst collecting an endangered species of tree, neglecting its importance over others. I might be pulling this out of my anal formation, but this could be their SCP Foundation. If sharks can't dish the information, the answer will remain in tethers. October 16th, 2002. Erroneously called 8 Black Squares, is when you're returning to the United States after Sean Penn accomplished something. You're ready to tell literally everybody about the trip. It was also on this day, shut up, that an ominous message came from personnel at the location of the portal, called Site-0. It listed certain SCPs losing their marbles, showed signs of possession taking place, and had scary words such as XK class end of the world scenario. But in reality, the personnel at Site-0 were fine, and no oopsies were made with the listed SCPs. The SCP Foundation would later find out it was a message from the future. The attached timestamp was December 21st, 2012. The end of the Mayan calendar.